So this is going to be a bit of a longer video, but I wanted to show you this entire game. It's going to get boring, and that's because there's 3 submarines in this game for each team. Yeah, pretty incredibly bad matchmaker. The only positive really is that there's no aircraft carrier. That's really it. So for now, we're just going to focus on the early game deployment and how I want to play against submarines in the early game. And it's actually island camping. The best way to play around submarines is definitely island camping. You put an island between yourself and where you think the submarines are going to be. You can't get torped, you can't get pinged. Simple as that. Unfortunately, island camping is completely countered by aircraft carriers. So if you have both aircraft carriers and submarines in the game, there's really not much place for you to go, right? If carriers force you to stay away from islands and force you to play open water, and subs force you to not play open water and go behind islands, yeah, there's just really nowhere left to go except the back of the map. Run away, and that's it. So yes, I agree that aircraft carriers and submarines bring something new to the game. They add a new layer to the game, for those of you that have been saying that. However, is that a good layer to add? Is that a good dynamic to add to the game? My argument would be no. I think it's a really, really bad addition. And I think it removes a lot of the strategic value of these islands. We may as well not have islands in these maps if there's CVs. And if there are submarines, we may as well not have open areas of the map because nobody's going to want to play them. It essentially removes a lot of the map design and the important strategic value of different island placements and different open water placements in these islands. I think that CVs and submarines basically invalidate all map design. And that's not really something you want to bring to a game where the only real diversity you see is different maps and slightly different variations of ships. The other thing that's an issue is the vast majority of the time, submarines are trying to play undetected. Obviously, duh, that's how they work, right? But that's a big issue because destroyers don't always play undetected, right? It's not just taking up a DD slot of somebody who would also play undetected all the time. There's a lot of gunboat destroyers. There's a lot of times where even torpedo DDs will use their guns and they'll use their smoke screens and shoot and that kind of thing. So it doesn't feel as empty. It doesn't feel as barren when there's a DD in the game versus when there's a sub. I think the submarines are actually far, far worse and make the game way less interesting as far as targets on the screen, things to shoot at, that kind of thing. That's really, really, really bad for the game. Unfortunately, my Shikishima appears to be not working today. We shot at a broadside Montana and got literally 0 damage, and now this poor Moskva that is just stuck broadside to us is also taking no damage. And then that very same Montana from 20 kilometers double citadelled us? RNG the video game. Welcome to Battleships. But back to the submarine question, I think this really is going to ruin the game. And I think that the people who are defending submarines might have a bit of a rose-tinted glasses look at this game. Or they just think that nothing that Wargaming could do could make the game worse. Perhaps they're new to the game. It's probably just that they're new. But it's really, really sad to see because Wargaming then gets a mixed message from the player base, and that's how we keep getting a game that continues to be more and more passive. The unfortunate thing is I see a lot of people complaining about the passive nature of this game. They complain that it's boring, and they complain that this game isn't that interesting when the battleship players just camp the back of the map, when the cruiser players just camp islands, or when the DD players just camp in their smokes or camp the back of the map near their AA cruisers and just spam long-range torpedoes. It gets boring, and I agree, but the problem is there's a very good reason that it's boring. And there's a very good reason for this, and I believe that it's because of aircraft carriers and submarines, primarily. Those are the 2 primary reasons people don't push in anymore. It also comes down to the change in the way cruisers, battleships, and destroyers are designed. There's a lot more DPM, there's a lot more accurate overmatch, there's just a lot more long-range firepower that is able to kill you sooner in the game. Something CVs also do is they spot you sooner, and therefore that long-range damage comes in sooner. So there's a lot of reasons this game has become far more passive. Another reason simply is the player base evolving. Initially, I'm sure this game could have been incredibly passive as well had the player base known more about the game and that pushing really is countered by most ships in most scenarios. But because of inexperience, people just pushed in anyway. So I think that's a combination of things, with the player base getting better and learning to not push, as well as Wargaming making stronger ships to stop pushing, that kind of thing. And that's on top of submarines and aircraft carriers. That's just within the 3-class balance between destroyers, cruisers, and battleships. We would see passive games even now, even if we completely removed aircraft carriers and submarines. So it's not just their fault and their addition to the game's fault, but it certainly doesn't help. So back to this game, we're up to 75k damage, not bad. Considering the amount of broadsides I got this game, I would have loved to have more than this at this point. But we're in a situation where we have some pretty decent map control, and, well, unfortunately, there's a submarine in our spawn. I don't know if you saw that, but there were some torpedoes that came for our Balau there in B, and they came from our side of the map. So it really is time for me to move. I can't just stay in this location that I've been playing in all this time, and that's just because there's a sub in our spawn. And in fact, there he is. He's spotted there in D5 there. The other good thing about this is I can move over and support the C flank. I think my team should win at A. We do have a pretty decent advantage over there, given our destroyer, submarine, firepower there, along with a Hindenburg that just died, so we might not win that side. But we managed to kill off the GK with our team, and now this Nevsky, Summers, and whatever the German DD is, is running away, so this is very good. And in fact, this Summers might die here. Shikishima, of course, has some pretty wonky dispersion sometimes. That's just due to the 6-shell nature of this ship. So I am running a very weird build here. I'll go over it at the end, but I do not recommend this. This is just me trying stuff because of the free commander resets at the moment. Just for fun, but this is not a good build. You should just run a normal tank build like everybody else does on this ship. Kind of boring, but that is the best way to play it. Now, we're quickly approaching my final salvos of this game. And you might be thinking to yourself, but this game isn't even at the 10-minute mark yet. There's so much left to play. This video isn't even half over yet. How could you possibly be approaching the final salvos of this game? Well, and that's because there's 3 submarines left. And we'll get into the strategies that I'm incorporating to somewhat deal with these ships, but this game is going to go the full distance. There is still 10 minutes and 45 seconds left in this match before it ends. So pretty boring, pretty awful experience as far as adding submarines into this game. I really, 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 really hope Wargaming listens. They said they were going to in their apology. I am really hoping they listen in this scenario and don't bring submarines into this game, at least like this. There have to be some massive changes in order for this to be an actual positive addition to the game. But I'm going to be watching to see if they listen to the community and the general outrage at how horrible submarines are. I don't really see that many people being positive about submarines, which is good, and hopefully that sends a pretty clear message to Wargaming, and I really hope they listen. A lot is riding on that. A lot of my ability to trust what Wargaming says, I think, rides on if submarines get added or not in this state. And that's because I want to give Wargaming a chance when they apologize and say they're going to do better. I want to give them a chance to do so. And I believe that this is that opportunity. They say they're going to listen to the community's feedback more and try and focus on creating the game and communicating with the players better. This is it. Are submarines going to get added like this or not? This is the moment that, for me personally, I will decide if Wargaming is actually wanting to do better, or if all they care about is adding more ways to get money out of the players as quickly as possible. And I think that's it. That is my last salvo, or maybe second or third last salvo of this game. So we now have 9 minutes of fighting submarines. Let's dive in. So there's a Below spotted right in front of us. Well, we obviously don't want to go out into this gap. That would be a really easy way to just get dev struck off the screen. So we're pushing towards the island, trying to close the distance without getting spotted, without getting pinged a whole bunch, without getting torped. 4 good hits, very little damage, but we do get a fire. So that is a damage control popped by that Below. Unfortunately, our Nevsky decides to just sit in front of the DD. And it doesn't really matter if the submarine gets a single or a double ping. That's enough torpedo power to dev strike most cruisers. These tier 10 DD submarines hit very hard, so I don't think he had a double ping there, but a single ping is more than enough to kill cruisers. So submarines, very, very good at killing cruisers. Very good at killing destroyers. I'm sure you know this by now, but the actual homing range, the distance to the target ship that the submarines stop homing is different depending on the class. So battleships have a nice 2.1 kilometer range where they stop homing. Whereas cruisers, if you get a double ping, I believe it's as low as 360 meters. Yeah, good luck dodging that in a cruiser. And DDs, I think it gets even lower yet. So pretty oppressive and horrible to fight. There's a large amount of helplessness here when you're fighting a submarine. We do get a few blind hits on the DD, or the submarine, sorry, these are submarines. And just keep your eye on in-game chat. There's a lot of people who think they're incredibly intelligent and in the way that they're saying undodgeable versus dodgeable torps, and you just don't know how to play yet. So there are people around that think this is fine, which is pretty incredible to me. You really shouldn't be listening to those people. Please try not to take them too seriously when they do say something like that. There's no really point in getting in arguments over it, because it is just a video game after all, but they're clearly new to the game, let's just say that. They don't really understand the mechanics and the way this game works yet. So now, we are in B, and the sub is also not in B. Either he's dipped below the water, which is more than likely, or he's actually left the cap at this point. So, with the Nevsky spamming me, I really do want to get to this island in B and maybe just stay here for a little bit. My guess was that this submarine turned to the south. I was thinking that he backed up a long ways, turned to the south, because maybe he saw my Yoshino pushing in, something like that. And then we get pinged from behind. So it's very, very hard to tell where these subs are going. It's very, very, very difficult. And we get pinged from the opposite side. So we know there's 2 subs around. So that is a single ping. In the moment, I think I thought it was a double ping. So that's why I used my damage control. But I shouldn't have used it here. I probably would have used it anyway if there was a flood, but I shouldn't have used it. You do want to save that damage control for those double pings. Those are the ones that are just going to dev strike you off the screen. That's when they ignore torpedo protection and do citadel damage. And now we've used our damage con, so we are a sitting duck. We are completely vulnerable to this submarine. There is nothing we can do other than duck behind an island. See, this is why you want to play around islands as a battleship player, or any player, when there's submarines around. This gives you the opportunity to use the islands to break line of sight to stop these pings, as well as the submarines torps home right away when they're launched, assuming they're pinged on something. So if I even put my trajectory towards an island, the subs torps are going to home and likely just hit that island because they're predicting that I'm going to move behind it. So that is why islands are so important against submarines. Unfortunately, it also means that you're a sitting duck for CVs when they're in the game. So not to rehash that again, but it is pretty unfortunate the way these two synergize together, submarines and CVs. CVs push the ships out into open water, which, surprise, surprise, CVs are also good at killing things in open water. And then subs can just nuke you with pings, and, well, look at how long it took my damage con to come back. There we go. We just got it back. The submarine loads, I believe, at least 2 sets of torpedoes in the amount of time it took for my damage con to come back off cooldown. So, assuming that he's able to catch us in open water, he could send 2 sets of torpedoes that are homing, double pinged, ignore my torpedo protection, and do citadel damage. 2 sets before my damage control comes back. The design is horrible. Whoever thought of this really, 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 really was either pressured into forcing this into the game, or just maybe isn't the most creative person at designing a game. This is pretty incredibly bad. Just mechanically design it. You should be able to go into a training room for 2 minutes and discover how horrible this would be to play against. For the submarine, it's pretty hilarious, because you pop someone's damage control. The strategy would be to send only one set of torpedoes, get a double ping, scare the crap out of the surface ship, force them to pop their damage control, and then send all the rest of your torpedoes, double ping, dev strike. Easy as that. Simple. How did that get through testing? How did that get through any sort of training battle? I don't know. But regardless, our Yoshino dies. We get spotted again. The Bilal is actually in the north, and for some reason, he's on the surface. So this guy massively, massively misplays, and we might actually get a kill out of this since he is on relatively low HP. We send both of our planes out and just hope. That is the hope right now. We're getting double pinged from the opposite side. However, we are turning. The best way to dodge torpedoes is actually to be bow into them, pushing into a submarine. This is the best way I have found to dodge submarine torpedoes. And that's really only with a battleship, because it's so far that the torpedoes stop homing. But you want to come in at around a 20 to 30 degree angle to where the submarine is pinging you from. And then with a little bit of prediction, you want to just turn in when you see the torpedoes. As soon as you see them, you need to turn in, and you can see how the torps just stop homing, and we can dodge them. So I know the submarine is directly in front of me. Well, there's the Nevsky behind us. There's really no way we can deal with him either, if he just uses the islands intelligently. And you can see we just know exactly where we're getting pinged from. And in fact, we're getting pinged from 2 directions. So there's actually 2 subs here. So I use my damage control again. I think I also thought this was a double ping. We get lucky, take most of those on our torpedo belt. And this Bilal, for some reason, surfaces. He still had battery left. I don't know what's up with these people surfacing like this, but he still had battery. So, yeah, we'll use our strike on this guy and another one on the other sub. We've now taken out 2 submarines simply because they didn't go under the water. Again, here come the torps, and we're at a decent angle, so we can slow down and turn in, and because the homing stops at a specific point, 2.1 kilometers, on a battleship, we can just barely avoid them. It's impossible to avoid them if you're at more than a 30 or 40 degree angle, in my opinion. You're going to get hit if you're broadside at all to these torpedoes. They will hit you. So that's why you really do want to be bow in. Stern in can also work, but it's a little bit trickier, I think. I haven't really tried it too much because I'm trying not to be in these situations against subs, but this game happened to come down to the wire like this, and yeah, it was an interesting opportunity for me to try out some strategies I've been thinking of to deal with submarines, but at the end of the day, this was a horrible experience. It's no fun to just sail around for 9 minutes with the odd time clicking on the ocean where I think a submarine might be and drop some plane depth charges. 9 minutes of that gameplay. It's horrible. Also, this sub, I believe, is in front of me, I'm guessing, and, well, this game's about to run out, right? So 10 seconds left in this match, trying to get a one last salvo on the Nevsky, one last drop on the sub. But if you look closely at our HUD, we're going to see torpedoes come from behind us. So that submarine managed to get behind us. And there that little tiny red dot there. So it's basically impossible to deal with these things unless they make a mistake, which is horrible gameplay. If all of the control is in one player's hands in a multiplayer PvP scenario, that is horrible game design. I'm basically an NPC at that point against these subs when I'm alone. Just like it's a CV. Sure, there should be some advantage given, but I don't think it should be 100% of the control. It's ridiculous. So anyways, here is the build that I was running. It's ridiculous. I'm just trying to get my reload as fast as possible. It's a dumb build. You shouldn't run this. You should really just run the fire prevention, concealment, and healing, right? just a normal build. That's what you should be doing. I'm just messing around because this is free respecs for just a little bit longer yet. Make sure you go to the website and find where, for your region, you can reset all your commanders for free. I think that's a really good addition by Wargaming to allow us to have some opportunities to mess around with builds. I wish they'd do it more often and not just when they're forcing new gameplay, game modes, game experiences down our throats that make the game just a worse experience. So let me know what you think about submarines in the comments below and how you've been dealing with them. I'm just sad, man. If this is going to come into the game, it just means that Wargaming doesn't care about the player base, and it also means this game that I've had a lot of fun playing over the last 6 years just continues to get worse, and that's really disappointing. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.